earlier, which is a man's relationship to risk and the importance that risk plays in his trajectory towards some type of success, fulfillment, purpose, a healthy relationship. So talk to me a little bit about risk and how important it is for men.
So again, let's go back to our evolutionary past. Throughout history, we know from looking at Y chromosomes, we can see that about 40% of men throughout history and about 80% of women have reproduced, meaning there's a 60% of men. There's also another insane stat. Before the year 1850, about half the Earth's population died before the age of 5. I was reading somewhere in the 17th century in Germany, the likelihood of, it was a 90% chance you didn't make it to the age of 15. Like the infant mortality rates were insanely high. And then the men, there was a group of surplus men that were around, and you see this in certain cultures where there's this massive group of men that die virgins or just weren't part of the, did not get to breed, didn't get to replicate. So if we know that about 40% of men and 80% of women have reproduced, that means there's a 60% of men who are sort of left behind. And in order for them to garner enough status or to garner enough sexual selection, to have enough high enough sexual market value to actually get to mate, they had to take risks. Then when you look at the consequences or the symptoms of testosterone, you start to see it's more risk taking, it's more assertiveness, it's more aggressiveness, it's more dominance, it's more ambition. And so as men have higher testosterone, it causes them to take more chances. Those chances cause them to have a higher probability of having having sex with any women whatsoever. So it's going up and talking to a stranger, taking a business risk, guys gambling it all on black, etc. You start seeing a higher ability, a higher level of risk tolerance, having a correlation to more success in business and having a correlation to more success with women. But the way I like to say it is there's certain risks that we had 200,000 years ago that we don't have anymore. For instance, approach anxiety in men, which is very, very difficult for men to get over. That approach anxiety comes from the fact that your ancestors would approach a woman, say the wrong thing, and be ostracized from the tribe, or just like maybe I live in a tribe with 150 people. There's maybe 7 or 8 women that I possibly could breed with in my whole life, and I've embarrassed myself in front of them. Or I go approach the wrong woman, and she's one of the brides of the chieftain. And then all of a sudden I'm killed unceremoniously because I've approached the wrong woman. That's where our approach anxiety comes from throughout our evolutionary history. Well, okay, let's go to 2025. What happens if I go approach a strange woman? Not much. It's not nearly as bad. Like I'm not going to die. It could be bad, but I'm not going to die. And so now I have this inappropriate or this misaligned fear of approaching a woman. And so when you look at those things, it's like those fears that you have. Now I'm taking a risk that isn't even really a risk. It's not really that big of a risk. And then when you go even further and you see some of the scandals that celebrities that go through, like for instance, we have a man who had sex with a porn star and we elected him president of the United States. We had a man who won a decathlete, transitioned to become a woman, ran over someone and killed him. And then we named her, Caitlyn Jenner, Woman of the Year 4 months later. When you realize that Jordan Belfort, one of the most famous sales trainers in the world, all the drugs he did, all the prostitutes, all that kind of stuff, they made a movie about him where he punches his wife in the stomach and then kidnaps his own kid. And he's one of the most famous sales trainers in the world. His books are bestsellers. And O.J. Simpson is really funny. Before he died, I had a conversation with him. I was at a party and I bumped into him and I asked him some questions. And he started telling me he was offered so much money to do a fantasy football podcast. Like it's one of these things where it's like the risk that you were taking and the hit to your reputation doesn't seem, when you look at all these celebrities doing these meme coins, like the Hawk Tuah girl or Jake and Logan Paul, and they just recover from it fully. There's less risk to your reputation and less risk if you go up and talk to a stranger than there was before. Yet we still have the fear of doing these things. People's fear of public speaking. They have this horrible fear of public speaking, but no one's going to kill you. Like if you go public speak, even though it's this mortifying, people would rather jump out of an airplane than go speak in front of a large group of people. And so you see these things, there's like evolutionary mismatches. And what you said before, your ability to take risk as a man is directly correlated to how much success you can have and how many women that you could end up dating or your options with women. So what I like to say is a high level of risk taking, so a high level of risk tolerance in combination with subject matter expertise, that's where success you tend to see come from. Just blindly taking risk is stupid, but taking risks when you have studied the arena to take risks is probably the best, what I'm talking about, the best combination for success. That's what I've seen. And then my clients who do the best are the ones who have the highest risk tolerance. That's what I've seen be most likely. And you just did a video recently where you're talking about men who don't take risk, how it becomes unattractive. Well, there's, again, tons of studies that show that men who have those attributes are more attractive to women.
Yeah, and I think one of the layers that I'll add into this, because you're adding in the evolutionary layer, which I think is important. I'll just add in the sort of interpersonal attachment based layer, which is that oftentimes, like a lot of the men that I end up working with are guys that have some type of childhood, attachment based interruptions, trauma, they experienced abuse, they're bullied, that type of stuff. And it's interfered with their ability to take smart risks or to even know what a smart risk is, because their neurology and their nervous system is so conditioned to move them away from any type of risk that might damage them again or put them back in that situation. And even if it's not remotely the same situation, their body has just been predisposed and conditioned to avoid that risk. And I think part of like one of the things that we do in our work is like helping men reorient their nervous system so that they have a greater capacity to take risks in their life, whether it's sending the email, asking for the promotion, asking the girl, the woman out, and even basic things, having a hard conversation with your wife or your girlfriend. Like those are the things that collapse a man and really start to push him into this corner of feeling like he's caged in his life, psychologically, emotionally, sexually, all those pieces. So how would you say that a man can begin to combat that? Like if a guy's wanting to work on his capacity and skill of risk taking, where does he begin?
My good buddy Orion Teraband says this. He goes, after 100 rejections, they're just data points. After you go up and talk to a woman and she rejects you, it feels personal, painful. But how can it be personal? She doesn't know you. And what happens is initially you have this horrible feeling, this massive cortisol stress emotion that happens. Oh my God, this woman rejected me. Once you do it over and over again, you become immersed in the idea of this rejection doesn't affect me personally, and it is not a commentary on who I am as a human being. When you get to the point where that rejection becomes less and less personal, you care less about the rejection. And what's funny is when you approach women, they can see you care less and you become more attractive, ironically, because you care less. It's the same thing in sales. I have a lot of, I have a sales team personally, and I talk to a lot of guys in sales, and there's this feeling that you have to get over where this rejection is not personal. It's not personal. It's not permanent. And it's not painful. You get used to these things over time. So what I would recommend guys do is you do need to form a certain level of callousness to rejection. And so when you do so, you become more attuned to being able to take risks, which makes you more successful, tends to make you more successful, and makes you more attractive. And so having these reference experiences and taking these risks where I've rewired in my mind where I go take a risk and I get rejected, and I've rewired that in my mind to where that's awesome. That's another reference experience I have to be able to deal with the rejection. You do this, in all areas of your life, when it comes to working out, when it comes to your finances, and when it comes to your dating. And then all of a sudden, you're able to take these risks and you understand it's not that bad. It becomes your ability to take risk increases, smart risk increases. And what'll happen is, ironically, you just become more attractive to the opposite sex. And when I have sales guys who go off the script sometimes and they take some risks to get the sale, I'm like, oh, this is awesome. Like this guy's willing to take risks. And this is a terrific thing. But you do it too much, you get to the point where you're hard-headed, or the worst part is when you take risk and you aren't willing to take constructive feedback. That's when you get yourself into a lot of trouble. So what I recommend to guys is just say hey man, what are these risks that I'm taking that where I feel this stress and it's not rational, right? Going up and approaching a woman in a bar, it's an irrational. It really is an irrational risk, right? You say, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know you were married. It's good to meet you guys. Whatever. You walk off. You're not going to die. You're going to be fine. And so getting used to understanding these risks, especially when it comes to one of the most irrational risks. People who I meet all the time who want to start their own podcast or want to create a brand on social media, and they're so afraid of what other people think of them. And I just go over again. I was like, look at all these politicians who go through these scandals, all these celebrities, and they just come out the other side unscathed. You're not a celebrity. No one cares about you. You're sitting there trying to, oh my God, I'm going to do a podcast. What if I say something wrong? Bro, no one's going to watch. You and I both know this being on YouTube. No one's going to watch the first 50 episodes you do. You'll be lucky to get 100 views. The idea that you're going to say something stupid and anyone's going to care, go back and listen to Joe Rogan's first podcast. He's in a closet, right? He doesn't sound like Joe Rogan. Your first episodes are going to be terrible. Take this risk. But what happens is you go back and you look at this reference experience that you have, and it's unbelievable. And then the other thing is, in order to skip several levels in success, and this comes to the relationships, dating, it comes to money, is to have mentors who have already made a lot of these mistakes and try to use the feedback that you get from those mentors. You get to skip several levels. So one of the things I say is take rejection as not being personal, take that as data points, and then also find people who already have success and follow what they're doing. And then once you do that, now you can take risks with more intelligence and more confidence. Once you see, okay, I'm doing a coaching program. These are 5 guys who have coaching programs that are bigger than me. Here's the 6 mistakes that each one of them made. They told me the top 6 mistakes they made. Let's avoid those mistakes. And all of a sudden I get to skip several levels. So that's what I would recommend for guys to do.